This is The Process Shot. I'm Michael. I'm not drunk enough to process this movie, but then again, I don't drink. Things is a very cheap, very Canadian horror film made back in 1989 by director Andrew Jordan. It follows Don and his friend Fred as they visit Don's brother Doug in some kind of isolated house in the middle of the mountains or the woods, I think. As it turns out, Doug and his wife Susan have wanted children, seeking the help of a doctor who uses the opportunity for his own occult experiments, resulting in Susan's death and the birth of monstrous creatures. What was looking to be a short visit could become a long death for Don, Fred, and Doug as they drunkenly stumble through the house in an attempt to kill the things. This movie is pretty much the epitome of the idea that anything that can go wrong absolutely will, both in its actual story, if you can call it that, as well as pretty much every production detail. The story itself is an extreme mess, both in terms of what happens and how it is actually constructed. Things is already short enough as it is, but it still takes its sweet time getting to any actual horror action, wasting time with poorly paced scenes of Don and Fred settling into Doug's home, mixed with other slow scenes of the doctor or Doug and his wife. Even when the things finally cut loose, the movie still decides to take its sweet time doing anything, negating any sense of horror simply because it takes so long for anything to happen that you stop caring. It doesn't help that scenes are intercut at times with a news reporter, played by porn star Amber Lynn, for what appears to be no reason at all. Maybe it's to try and hide some of the story holes, such as Fred disappearing at one point in a explosion of blood, only to return like an hour later and out of nowhere. Then again, plot holes and inconsistencies and bad pacing and unnecessary cutaways are only half of the problem. The rest of the problem with things is, well, everything else. The movie looks as if it were shot without anybody looking into the camera to make sure everything was visible, or at least framed well, with the end result forcing the audience to have to strain their eyes to see anything being discussed. Speaking of which, the film's audio is 1 part crappy natural audio and 3 parts crappy dubbed dialogue, mixed poorly at several points and overlapping the 2 tracks, making what was already difficult to understand even worse. The actual musical soundtrack of Things is the only thing worth speaking kindly about, save for how it's not enough to carry the movie. I suppose the special effects used throughout the film are also pretty competently pulled off, but it doesn't help that the shots are often too blurry to see anything, too poorly framed that you can't see anything, or too short that if you blink, you miss everything. Usually a movie can be salvaged in editing, but in the case of Things, it's all cobbled together haphazardly, as if this were a rough cut accidentally being sent out as the final piece. Funny enough though, the editing almost seems to reveal something about the film's production and the attitude the filmmakers took towards it, as by the end of the film, it almost seems to take a horror comedy approach to its events, as if everybody stopped caring about trying to make a serious horror film, writing it off as a loss and just rolling with whatever seemed to work. Unfortunately though, nothing in Things works. And unless you're watching it with friends to make fun of everything going on, you're better off taking a walk in the woods to find your own dang creepy house to sleep in. Things. Andrew Jordan, 1989. Half a star. Again, I do not recommend watching this movie unless you and some friends can get as drunk as the characters in here before popping it in. Anyways, that's it from me. If you like this review, leave it a like. If you've got something to add, leave a comment. As always, subscribe to the channel for more reviews. I need to lie down. I don't know why this movie is so frustrating to me. I'll just pretend it's the Canadians.